Minding My Business, the CEO story with Ramesh Menon and Hrishi K.
Hello. We're a peace-loving team at Radio 1 and HT Smartcast, so it really pains us when there is an invasion of any sort. The only invasion we are okay with is an invasion of happiness. So let me introduce my co-host, an all-round good man who brings in a fair amount of happiness and good cheer, the CEO of Fever Network and Radio 1, Ramesh Menon. Hey, how are you?
All good. Hi, Hrishi. Well said on the invasion bit. And this, yes, is the time when the world needs a large amount of Indian spirituality and the doctrines, may I say, of ancient Ayurveda.
Spoken like a true Malayali, Ramesh. I mean, your home state, Kerala, is the place where Ayurveda has always been thriving, hasn't it? And you had to get that one in.
You're right, absolutely. But then there are people who've taken that ancient science and added a touch of modern cool to it and made it palatable in a sense to Indian and international audiences and consumers. And we're really happy to have one such pioneer with us today. Please welcome Vivek Sahni, CEO and co-founder of Kama Ayurveda. Hi Vivek, good to have you here and hope all well.
Thank you so much for having me. I love the idea of being a pioneer. I never thought of it that way. Thank you for saying that.
You're a modest man, Vivek.
I don't know, but I mean, I guess something that's been around for a few thousand years, I hardly seem like a pioneer.
Pioneer of modernizing it and taking it international. What was the idea behind the conception of Kama Ayurveda? How has that evolved with the passage of time?
So, how does one say it? I think the best things happen by mistake or randomly. This was one of them. We never came out thinking that we're going to create an Ayurvedic brand which is going to go around the world, yada, yada, yada. It was a bunch of us sitting around having a conversation and thinking about what we could do, what we could take, which was Indian, which was traditional, which had a proven provenance, efficacy, etc., you weren't sure what, and take it out to the world. And with that thought process is where we came upon Ayurveda. We went to Coimbatore. We discovered all these different Ayurvedic institutions, AVP in particular, who we work with. I guess it's literally magic. I mean, it feels like it's not magic because it's a science, but it feels like magic because it works. It's plant-based and the plants worked in a particular way actually help you. And I walked into this hospital where there were a bunch of people being treated for many different diseases. The treatments are working. And it really was an eye-opener because for me, as a novice from North India, I was like, what is all this? But it was quite extraordinary. And that's how we started. And how it's transformed today. It's 20 years ago when we started this thing. At that point in time, like me, most people didn't really, but had a vague awareness of Ayurveda that it's Indian. It was something which usually some relation, probably an older relation, would recommend. It was usually quite smelly and, you didn't really think too much about it. And it's usually some kind of medicine for stomach upset or headache or, I don't know, whatever, some kind of thing. Or if it was some sort of, incurable disease, you were sent there. But this actual thing of using it as an everyday form, to put into your bathroom or on your dressing table and utilize it as a daily use product, I think that's what's transformed. And that's what we've been able to do, is to take something which was specifically, go to a doctor, get a treatment, get this product, try it out. And here, this is something which you can buy online. You can buy it at a Kama store. You can buy it anywhere. And, put it into your bathroom, in your kitchen, wherever you want to put it, on your dressing table, and use it every single day. And, see the results, not only for yourself, but for your family. And I think that's what the transformation has been.
You told us about your how you started. Can you tell us about, what was your life pre-Kama? And that's a sort of a journey that our listeners would love to hear.
Nothing to do with beauty, nothing to do with Ayurveda. In a nutshell, I went to Delhi University to start with. I joined my family business, which I did not like. And I think one of the good things I did was I worked there for 3 years, almost 4 years. And that was enough to tell me I did not want to work there. So it was not like I did not want to work there just like a thing of my head. It was, I went in there, I worked there, and I said, this is definitely not for me. I quit, and then I was really not very good for very much else, because I'd be sort of grown up assuming I was going to do this. So, what do you do? I spent one summer figuring out what I was going to do. And I ended up I always was good with the computer. And I ended up going to art school in America, where I studied communication design. And I came back to India, and my family, my grandfather was a journalist, my father studied journalism. So I was actually very keen on publishing. So I ended up working for publishing houses, designing books, designing magazines, designing journals. From that, it went on to working with the art scene that just opened up in India, all these new galleries that opened up. So I started designing there, the artist catalogs, things like that. And it was sort of like a growing journey. So, whatever would come my way, it wasn't like I'm only going to do a book. It was like, then I had a bunch of corporate, I started designing, but what I did learn from my role of working with my family was that I've quit something which I don't like to do. I'm only going to do what I enjoy doing. So that is very clear. So even the corporate work I took on was work I was interested in doing, which was interesting to me. I was not going to take on work which I do only one thing which you don't like and then take something else on which you don't like. What's the point, So I only took on projects. So obviously I made far less money than I would have. So, it was difficult, but frankly, that's a call you take. You choose, you take a call between, I guess, the things you want to do and financial gain at that point in time, I guess. I mean, you can have both, of course, but anyway, I chose to sort of do the things I wanted to do, work on the projects I wanted to work on. And, out of the blue, I also started designing wedding cards. A friend of mine is a fashion designer. He came up to me, some client had asked him to do a wedding card. He didn't know what to do, so he came to me. I ended up doing it. Courtesy that, I ended up I created a separate wing which made wedding cards, which actually started paying my bills, which could actually pay for the publishing design and the exhibition design and all the low-paying other jobs I was doing. So, it was a wonderful project. And from this, I started doing packaging design, where I started packaging, three-dimensional things. And at this point in time, I ended up with getting a project from the government of India with Khadi Gramodyog to create a gift box for them with packaging, which I did do, which is an interesting project which lasted. And I created this brand around this Khadi KVIC products. It was done by them. It was a very interesting project. And that actually led on to the journey of Kama. Because that project finished, my other co-founders came to me, came to us, me and my other business partner, can we do this together? And that's how Kama came about. So frankly, I think, everything happens for a reason, and, whatever you do all ends up somewhere. So suddenly now, 20 years later, I ran away from my father's factory and now I've set up a factory. So, it all comes back at some point.
There are two ways to describe it. One is that life comes full circle. The other thing is when you least expect life to bite you in the butt, it does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So who knows? You have to I guess you have to do all of these things. They come back to you.
Yeah. Let's come back to Kama. You're known for your Ayurvedic products, Vivek, but what we find very, very impressive is that you combine scientific formulae with Ayurveda. Tell us about the brand's R&D and the formulation of these progressive products.
So, we have, there are two parts to it. One is we work with the classical Ayurvedic formulation because that's the base for all our products. Okay. So the classical, whether it's the Kumkumadi Thailam, the Nili Vringadi oil, the Nal Pramadi, these are all words actually were not even out in the general, how do you say it, vocabulary until we sort of pushed this out there. Now they're pretty well known, and there are tons of other people doing the same thing or trying to do the same thing anyway. But one of the things was, it's all very well to say this is efficacious. What's the proof? So we actually went out and did clinical trials for each of these products with different age groups, with men and women, to actually see if these products worked. So this is one part of it. So there's the classical formulations, which we did clinical trials to make sure, and the classical formulations were adjusted by us because obviously a lot of them are meant for specific skin issues. So we adjusted them to suit, make them all tridosha, all skin types, all tridosha basically. and we adjusted them and then tested them, did the clinical trials. So we had to do all the tests, obviously, for allergies, etc., stability, all of those things. And so there's a scientific proof to show that these things work. And then there are the Ayurveda derived products, and that's where the real innovation is, where we basically will take this formulation, which is an oil, and actually make it into a cream with a very high concentration, because the higher the active, the higher the concentration, the more effective the cream is, So if I put in 12% active, it's more effective than putting in 5% active, So the issue, of course, is the higher the active, the lower the shelf life. So we basically had to come to a midpoint where you say I'm going to have a 2-year shelf life and not a 3-year shelf life, but I will have a higher active and I will have a cleaner, Also, the other thing was to have an absolutely clean product. So, I cannot use the normal preservatives that people would use. I'm trying to use a food grade or very, very mild preservative systems, so that I'm trying to, keep the nomenclature of an EU certified clean product. And those certifications keep changing all the time. So every year there's a new list of banned substances or to be banned substances. So it's almost like a trade barrier. So you have to keep cleaning the product up constantly. So there's a huge amount of innovation that goes into it, which is why mostly it would take us about 2 to 3 years to develop a new product by the time we brought it out to market. So there's a lot in the pipeline. By the time they started coming out, obviously, as a small company with limited resources, it was very slow. Over the years now, obviously, we've got more money, we've got funding, we've got a larger R&D department, so the process is speeded up.
That's great. Vivek, tell us about your growth story. That's something that would be interesting for everybody.
So when we started, as I said, it was an interesting project. We ran it out of my office because I had the space. It was just by chance. And it was slow. We basically had 8 products and we did not have the wherewithal to open a shop. Also, you can't open a shop with 8 products, and it doesn't make sense. So what we did do was we basically put it into shop-in-shops. And at that point in time, retail in India was not that organized. So it was basically, friends of the 4 of us, whether it was Good Earth, which really helped us, to the Oberoi beauty parlors, to, things like literally like that, the park hotel stores, places like that, which would put the product in. Then we looked at chemists, premium chemists, because that was a very good place where people ended up buying product. So for the first 10 years till 2012, the retail was through that. And in 2012, we basically decided, obviously the range of products had grown, and we decided at that point, I think it's time to actually do something with this brand, And that's when we opened our first store. And it was actually very interesting because, you first have to imagine what is this physical entity of Kama going to be like, because one is to have a product, but then what this environment is going to be like. And we debated a lot, and we finally came up with the way it looks and feels. The sensorial, there's always some agarbatti burning or an essential oil burning. There's music. How does a customer interact? I would sit in that shop pretty much every day watching people shop. And our biggest thing at that point in time was the shop has to break even because the rent was so high. And we borrowed money from a whole bunch of people to, put the deposit on the shop. But it was very interesting. So that shop started actually paying back within 3 months. And we were like, wow. And then we opened another shop 2013. And then 2014, we got our first round of investment. Very short, very, very quick. We were still a very tiny company. And then from those 2 stores in 2014, we're at about 52 stores now, 75 shop-in-shops, etc., etc. So we grew at about 50% year on year till 2019. Then obviously, with post-pandemic, it slowed down. But it is exponential, literally, and and all the stuff that goes with it. Because literally, hiring people, hiring store staff, training, systems, there's nothing, and putting all of that together. So it was sort of. Sometimes I didn't quite know what day it was and what week it was, and where it also meant to know. But I have to say, it's been a lot of fun, and it's something which I enjoy doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. So I think that's the most important thing.
I'm keen to know, apart from the cash crunch, were there a couple of challenges that you can put your finger on and say these were monstrous challenges that you surmounted, Vivek?
Well, I don't know surmounted because the challenges are every day. But it's just a basic thing. Okay, what is what does a graphic designer who's doing art books know about running a business? Like Jack.
True.
So I'm serious. Like, what do you know? So basically, I had to teach myself. Like, so these guys came in and said, so do you have an ERP system? I was like, what's an ERP system? So then, basic stuff. So that is the biggest one, was educating myself. So that in itself was the biggest one, and I'm still doing it. It's a constant learning, because I did not have a business background. I did not have an engineering background. I did not have any of those things. So basically, the first thing was, teaching myself on a constant basis as to what's going on. One. Then getting the right people in place, because, how do you hire correctly? Because, I do have experience in that area. So if you've been into an IIM or IIT or whatever MBA school, you have some sensation, you work with people like that, but I hadn't. So, I had to get the funds to help me to hire the right people, get the right people in place. That is the biggest one, I think, was to get the right people in place, then get the supply chains in place. Because obviously, when you're gearing up, making product for one shop and, a whole bunch of shop-in-shops is one thing. The minute you're expanding on a scale, how does one do that? How do you create relationships with your vendors? There's all third party at that point. We didn't have a plant. How does one do that? Put all of those, and then get people obviously to start dealing with that, because obviously you can't do everything yourself, and making sure those people are the right people. And then also very often, and it does happen, I think everywhere, you start, as you get in other people, the company is small, people started taking advantage of you, they start skimming off, So putting controls into that. So, it's an amazing learning, I have to say, and a lot of those challenges are still there. But I think the biggest thing is to keep an open mind, not to get too flustered, and not to put your hands up. Just say, it's fine, it'll happen, it'll sort itself out. And I think really important is to choose your battles. So at some point, this is drama is continuing on that side, but fine, let it continue. It's not worth it, because I got this other bigger drama to deal with. So finish that one and then get to it. So you choose your battles to deal with them.
So you mentioned the pandemic in passing, but the pandemic has been good and bad for different businesses, and parts of different businesses have succeeded and done well, and some done badly. What has it been like for you, and how did your brand navigate these waters? I know it's been pretty bad for retail as a business.
Well, yeah.
How did you navigate it?
So we were primarily a retail brand with shops and shop-in-shops, and when we shut down, frankly, we were like, "What's going on?" Literally, like, what do we do now? This is like one more, you said challenges. This is one big, huge one. And I was literally like, how am I going to pay my salaries, and how am I going to do anything? We literally, we had to hire people for the site. We had to, first of all, the site was an okay site. It was a very okay site, technologically and in terms of navigability and user friendliness. So we basically on Zoom hired people, put in teams in place. And simultaneously, the biggest thing which we did have was this big asset of all our store staff. And we started a home delivery system. We basically got in a 1-800 number. We got the technology for that, got them to start calling our loyal customers, replenishing through that. Then I had all my trainers, the guys who used to train the staff, they're sitting at home and doing nothing. So then I started an online beauty consult with them through WhatsApp video or on the site directly. So, free. But then we found that the minute you're doing an online beauty consult, everybody's sitting at home doing nothing. So suddenly it's not only me, but your wife, child, dog, everybody comes in, they're all having a conversation. I want this, I want that. And basically my average basket, which would be 3,000 rupees, might become 5,000 rupees, So that was what actually tided us over until the site started actually functioning. It was 6 months for the site to start actually functioning, the technology to be in place and, actually start performing. All of this stuff actually really sort of tided us over. And now I think the business is almost like 70% of our business is online as of 2 months ago.
Fabulous.
But it's already now changing. As the markets are opening up, I think people are going back into the shops, and that's changing already.
So how do you sell Ayurveda to the West? I'm really curious to know. Think of me as a Westerner who's curious about Ayurveda. What are the Ayurvedic habits do you think as a Westerner I can adopt?
So, it's an interesting thing that I found that, so it's the two kinds of people. They're the Westerners who know about Ayurveda, and they know more about Ayurveda than Indians do. It's very much like yoga. So yoga and Ayurveda are sister sciences. You do the physicality to If you and if you're when your body is out of balance, you go to Ayurveda. And because there's a vast proliferation of yoga schools around the world, it's not just one country. I think it's a global phenomenon. There's a lot of interest in that whole universe, or some awareness of Ayurveda. Okay, and then of course there's another universe. For them, it's like for a lot of us people, like, what is Ayurveda and what is it? And I think that's where the question is. So the ones who know about it actually know a lot, and then want to know, why is my product got this and why is my product not got that, and what is in this and what is, there's like more questions than you could even anticipate. And then for the ones who don't know, I think that's the interesting one, and that's what our challenge is going to be, because that's where the majority of the population is. So I think the thing about Ayurveda is finding a balance and finding the right balance for you. And if you are able to balance your body, your skin and hair will look good. So skin and hair are barometers for good health. And if your body is balanced and you're eating well and exercising well and drinking enough water and you're in good shape, your skin will look good, your hair will look good, you'll have less pimples, less acne, less whatever issues you've got. And till such time as you do that, here are some nice products which will help you get there.
Interesting.
In that sort of fashion, yes. I'm sort of summing it up.
So how do you at Kama ensure the authentication of Ayurvedic formulae, uses and so on? More because, typically consumers nowadays are just, immediately going on to Google, checking ingredients, checking formula, checking whatever else is there. And then coming back, self-taught also they claim.
Yeah. So that's the biggest one for us. So the thing is this, that there's a classical formulation, okay? And the classical formulation might say 2 parts goat milk, 1 part cow milk, 1 part buffalo milk, okay? And then this herb to be used fresh and that herb used to be used dry and this one to be fermented over 14 days before you add it in. Very painful, very expensive, and no patience. Most companies are now just shortcutting it and saying we'll use the dry herb, who's got the patience, because fresh herb means if there's a flood or there's too much, or there's drought, there's no fresh herb, and too expensive to get fresh herb from somewhere else. So that's one of the biggest challenges we face, is because we are sticking with the classical, the main classical, our adapted version of the classical formulation. So, when we had there were floods in Kerala, we actually had a short. So basically, for example, my hair oil, I only make it 8 months a year because there's no fresh herb available in the balance. So I have to create enough to be able to have that. And that's with 2 of the other products too. We actually produce according to the season. And it's actually becoming a big pain now, because with global warming, with these changes in the drought, flood, this, that, the temperature, the availability, and since it's all plant-based, the availability is the biggest pain. So it's a challenge. It's very much a challenge, but that's the biggest thing for us, is to make sure that we stick with the authentic formulation and that there are no shortcuts to it. And to that end, now we're also looking at some kind of backward integration with farmers, with things like that. Earlier, we were too small. I don't think we haven't had the remotest of scale to be able to do that. But as we're growing, that's one of our key initiatives, is to actually go back and try and create a backward integration thing for the plants and for the herbs and the things that we use.
I'm just very keen to know how much packaging and visual merchandising has played a part in your success. How big a role would that play in Kama's success story?
I think packaging, well, that's what I studied and that's what I went to school for. I think it's a huge role. I think as human beings, just examine our own behaviors. No matter you say, I don't care and whatever. You walk into a shop and you walk into a fancy shop, you look at your eyes automatically go to one particular kind of thing. You go into a supermarket, your eyes are automatically drawn to a particular kind of thing, to a visual. You're making visual judgments in addition to the nutritional judgments. So while brand X might have better, provability, but brand Y looks much nicer and feels much nicer and looks nicer in your bathroom, the chances of you buying that are much higher. You'll have to go back to brand A to sort of read the fine print and then say, fine, I don't want to buy it. So I think it's really important that the way things look and they feel. It's nice to have nice looking things in your dressing table, and in your bathroom. I think it's really important. And also when you're paying a fair amount of money, so there's the efficacy part of it, because that's critical. That's what you're paying for, and the authenticity of it. But if it looks nice too, why not? I think it definitely adds I think it's a huge value addition for sure.
Absolutely agree. Your packaging is fabulous, actually. You mentioned the proliferation of brands in the space, Ayurvedic beauty and wellness brands, and people who claim Ayurveda and so on in the Indian market today. And what, according to you, sets Kama apart from all of these, brands that are coming up every day?
So, I think the biggest thing is this: authenticity and efficacy. I think that's the most important thing, And I think the fact that, we've been around for a while and we are continuing to do that, and we are playing this, and things also, we're creating products slowly. We're creating products that are effective or potentially effective, We're also not saying that this is going to fix you after one use. I'm saying 21 to 30 days after use, your skin will feel better, your hair will feel better. It's a long term. It's a long term play. There's no quick bucks. There's no quick fixes. It's application. It's oil you have to use again and again, and then you will, then your skin will feel better, or your hair will feel better. And I think the biggest thing is authenticity and efficacy. I think those are the two key ones.
So you spoke a little bit briefly about your clinical trials. I want to know, what kind of certification do you use for the products?
So different things. So for our organic products, which are the oils, they're organic oils which we have, and those they have an eco certification. There's something called LACON certification. So those are those. We also have a PETA certification for all they're no testing on animals. And then all the cosmetic products, in addition to all the trials which we do in India, and they all are manufactured under cosmetic or a drug license. But for the EU, we are actually certified under their testings, which is actually a very big one, because they are literally examining pretty much each ingredient. If you're saying neem, is it neem seed? Is it neem bark? Is it neem oil? Is it is it cold pressed? Is it hot pressed? What is the extraction process? So it's that level of breaking down before they give it to you. And as I said, every year there are 10 new products which ingredients they decide to ban. So it's a constant process of cleaning up, and to be able to maintain those certifications.
One has always wondered why more Indian brands are not international, and with all this traditional knowledge that we have, why haven't we taken it international much more than we have done? You mentioned yoga. Yoga is truly international now. What has your international expansion been, and how has it worked out for you?
So, ours has actually been very erratic and not cohesive at all. It's generally been dramatic, inorganically done. Organically done. People would come in, somebody would buy here, somebody would buy there. We had one very nice woman who's been selling for us in Europe for 10 years now. She loves the products. But we have a new investor on board, and that is going to actually, I think we were actually planning to do this this year, but obviously with the pandemic, everything got shifted off. So I think we actually have a much better plan, and I think starting next year, we will have a larger footprint going forward, a more organized footprint going forward. What ended up happening in India was basically we had lots of Japanese and Chinese coming into the stores. They loved us. People are ordering from us. We ship online from our website, and that's around the world. So that's pretty much been that. But there's not been an organized retail thing. I think that's going to start taking place early next year.
Okay, let's look at your personal choice. If I were to ask you personally, what are your 3 personal favorite Kama products, what would they be?
The shampoo, the hair oil, and the kumkumadi. Basically, I have falling hair, so it's very simple. You have to just be practical, and it does stop your hair from falling. It does keep your hair health better. And I don't have patience to use too many products on my face. So it's like a quick fix. You just put on at night, and it's taken care of. It's taken care of everything. You don't have to. It keeps your skin looking good. I'm not selling it, but it's my one go-to, my one quick fix go-to.
Let me ask you, do you have a core target group you've identified, or you want to be everything for everybody, or
No, so when we started, the Kama woman, so to speak, well, I guess when we started doing this 2012, 13, 14, around that time when we started doing these focus groups, see, obviously that online was not so strong then. Everything was not there. So at that point in time, the Kama woman was 28 to 40, educated, well-traveled, had tried and experienced other products and then chosen to go the natural and Ayurvedic way. So started with that, and then basically she was married, double income family, child or a child on the way, and the associations would have come from yoga, working out, exercise, travel, spa, wellness, family exposure. So that was the basic, that is the initial target things. It's now expanded quite a lot because the products are pretty much unisex. So I find we have a lot of men using them. We also have, because we have some very good, extremely good quality anti-acne products, we have a lot of a younger audience. Mostly it's these mothers, older mothers buying them for their kids. For the, sort of 14 to 18 kind of teenagery, pimples, things like that. We have that. But the initial core group was this. It's expanded. It's become a little bit younger, I'd say. I'm finding, especially with the pandemic, I'm finding a younger audience, and we're finding men coming in too. Because I think perhaps it's got to do with Zoom, where we're seeing our faces and our every pore on our face, magnified so much. I think a lot of men also are now concerned about what they put on their face. I think it makes a big difference.
I'm sure D2C helps in getting younger audiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I understand that you said initially it was a lot of luck by chance. You went with the flow and things like that. But ultimately, when you look at business growth, you've got to have some kind of strategies in place. What are strategies that have helped the business grow, Vivek?
The biggest one was our own stores. I think that was the initial strategy, was to open an own store. It gives you a place to experience the product. And I think before online, that was the only way to grow was to have your own store. People would walk into a mall or into a high street, they'd see your shop, they'd experience it. And they would, test the product, then they would use it, they'd come back and buy some more of it. And also this brand awareness, because the more you grow, the more stores you're in, people see you, they are able to buy you more. Then as the online grew, we found initially that people were really replenishing online, they were buying them in the store. So it's not a primarily online shop. It was basically, you walk into the store, experience it, and if you can't get it, then you buy it online, or you can't be bothered to go into a shop, you buy it online. So I think the biggest, our strategically, the store things were huge, and I think that's something which we're continuing now, and also now opening in smaller, I don't want to call them in tier 2 and 3, but let's say smaller places. We've just opened in Ranchi. We've opened in Panjim just now. We're opening in Bareilly and a whole bunch of other places, Indore, Gwalior, across all of that. And that's and I think that is specifically one for awareness, trial, brand exposure. I think that's really, really important.
You mentioned you've done some interesting stuff with designers. How do these collaborations work? Have you done any more of them?
Well, the pandemic hit. We did a few to start with. They were kind of interesting. We actually did only one big. The thing is, we on a constant basis, we work with craft, basically craft, not design so much, but with craft. So, and that's something which I was personally very interested in. So, like for example, the baskets in our store came from a not-for-profit in Manipur. Every time we did a promotion, so one Diwali we did diyas which were made by some in a village in Orissa. The next time we did these diyas, they were made by some guys in Khurja or something. So each time we work, but again working with a not-for-profit in things, so that whatever we are able to do, we are able to help somebody else, and specifically a not-for-profit. So if we have a choice to work with a not-for-profit or profit, I'd rather work for a not-for-profit. So just giving a opportunity, and also now that the quantities have increased, there are many more gift boxes, there are many more Diwali boxes. It's just more interesting to be able to give back. It's a lot of challenges because obviously the supply chain takes much longer. You have to order much more in advance. There are quality issues, but I think it's worth that only from this point of view. We did one interesting collaboration with a fashion designer over Valentine's, which is kind of cool. That was kind of fun. But we haven't done anything bigger than that as yet. But we regularly work with a bunch of influencers of all shapes. I don't know, shapes is the wrong word. All following sizes of following, if you wish to call it that. Yeah, I guess that's the right terminology. So micro influencers and large scale influencers, who we work with, and that actually works very well with us. We work with regional influencers, and those are actually very, very interesting. We find it gives us very good feedback. It gives us great responses from areas which we had not looked at doing. So that's actually been extremely, extremely useful for us.
Let me take you back to Parsons School of Design, your alma mater. Let's talk about art and designs that have caught your eye over the years. Need not necessarily be in your own category, but just generally designs that you just look at and go, whoa.
That's a pretty vast subject. So I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what, one or two things that sort of stayed with me. I think when I first discovered the Bauhaus, I think that was the most, that was very, that was the beginning of one kind of learning of the fact that the school existed, which, created things and form and function, and all the various disciplines and all the brilliant artists that came out of there, working with color theory, working with furniture design, working with architecture. I think that is one kind of thing that kind of stayed with me. And it still kind of is somewhere always in the back of my mind, this whole idea of, form and function and working there. And the other thing that I'm really interested in is craft out of India, actually craft out of most places, but craft out of India. And pretty much, I'd say largely textiles, but also, and I'm very interested in textiles, how they are made, and the revival of old textiles, revival of the techniques, the thought processes, how these guys made them. They have the most extraordinary color sense. They have the most extraordinary design sense. And you're wondering, where did this design sense come from? Was it just carried through? And then you look at design interventions made now, and a lot of them are not particularly good when you're working with these guys. So it's an interesting way to see. And actually, I'm really interested in how how this process continued and how we can improve it without shoving intervention into, how do you say it? It's not an intervention. It's actually it's a way to progress and not change the way they think and the way they work. I think these are sort of areas I'm interested in and looking at.
Great. The market for clean organic beauty products has exploded of late, right? And there are a lot of these startups which are digital first, which came into the business, like say Mamaearth or Wow or Plum or any of these guys. And there are a lot of the older players, Kama, of course, and Forest Essentials, Himalaya, and so on, who started retail first and then sort of now trying to get into digital. What do you think that you guys have going for you, or Kama in specific has going for it, and how do you, compete with the new guys, funded startups that have come up in the space?
Well, it's interesting because the thing is, one is we're much more expensive. So, we're a different price point to all, to the majority of the new players, let's put it that way. The older ones are sort of, at a higher price point. You can't be everything for everybody. So as I said, what sets us apart is efficacy, is authenticity, purity, and I think that's what we stick by. And that's what we have. We have a very high repeat customer rate. It's almost 70%. And that's what sets us apart, I guess, is that. Because, as I said, you can't, and there always will be competition. I think competition is good. It's good for the country. It's good for people. It's good for everybody to have competition. It's good for us to keeps us on our toes. Otherwise, you also become, you sort of become, isolated and think, they just think no end of yourself. So I think it's good for everybody to have competition and keeps you on your toes. It keeps innovation alive. I think it's great. But I think what sets us apart is the efficacy and the authenticity.
Now, this is not a tongue-in-cheek question. It's a very, very serious question. Given the phenomenal growth of Ayurveda as a category, how much would you attribute to Baba Ramdev and Patanjali?
I think I can't thank him enough.
Category grower. Yeah.
Phenomenal. No, and education. Other everybody before would come to say, "ये क्या है Ayurveda? Herbal है, natural है, क्या है?" Now, I don't know, there's no things. And luckily, I have Ayurveda attached to Kama's name, so it's done. So can't thank him enough. I have to say, he's revolutionary. I have to say, it's extraordinary what he managed to do. Really, really extraordinary. One man could revolutionize a thing like this. Quite extraordinary. I think it's helped everybody in the Ayurveda world, Ayurveda universe, I should say.
It's true. The only place where Ayurveda sells on the road and there are more Ayurvedic medical shops than normal medical shops is Kerala, actually.
Absolutely.
And
there's Patanjali there too.
And and now Patanjali is taking it everywhere in the country.
You see?
Just another question on the digital piece, and really, it's cool right now to be digital and digital first and D2C and so on. So I know you've been trying to rejig and sort of the pandemic helped you make that change, make that shift. How does your sales before the pandemic and after the pandemic and differ in terms of the D2C part of it or the e-commerce part of it, and how do you feel about the on-ground presence versus your digital presence now, having seen the last 2 years sort of pan out the way it did?
So from 30%, we went to 70%. From digital 30%, 27%, we went to about 70% digital sales. And our online sales, which our store sales, which were 70%, went down to 30%. Obviously, the stores are shut, things are not open, people are not going to shops. Having said that, while I do see a continuous increase in online sales, I do see people going back into shops. We're still a very young country. We're still a very new country. A lot of places have not experienced, retail like that. When you're opening in these smaller towns. So while it might be boring to somebody in Delhi and Bombay, for somebody in a smaller town, it's definitely a new thing. They want to go, they want to experience it, they want to try this, they want to try the trousers on, they want to try the makeup on, they want to see the movie, they want, it's not like I want to watch it on DVD at home, whatever it is, or live streaming on at home, they want to experience the whole space, they want to eat in the food court, or in the restaurant, the cafe, they want to try the sari on, there's an excitement about that, you want to take the whole family out there, see what you're getting them presents. So I think that's not going to change that quickly. So obviously it forced everybody online, but I do see people going out again. And I think, you have to examine your own habits. Don't you want to go out suddenly? You want to go out, even though you're scared of going out or might still be scared of going out. And the way human beings are pretty similar, at a base level. So we all pretty much react the same way. So if you want to go out, I think most people want to go out too. It's a general feeling. It's not, them and us or somebody else's, as an observed species. It's one universe pretty much.
So congratulations, Vivek. 20 years in the business for you now. How does Kama look at 2022 and beyond?
Well, sometimes I can't believe it's 20 years for something that started relatively on a lark. But I think going forward, the exciting thing is going to be, as I said, our original thought, which was to take something Indian, traditional, authentic out to the world. So it's taken us 20 years, but hopefully that'll start happening now. I think that's the exciting part. I think that's the really interesting part is how we take it. And then the question you asked me earlier about how am I going to convince a Westerner or a Far Easterner what is Ayurveda about and how am I going to sell it to them and how they're going to use it. I think that's the challenge, and I think that's the next challenge, and that's the next exciting thing. So I'm actually, I think that's for Kama and for all of us at Kama. I think that's I think that's something which we're looking forward to crafting, thinking about, and seeing. And actually, the question you asked is an extremely valid question. It's something which we are working on and trying to figure out where how do we do it? How do we convince? What's the peg? What's the hook? And how do we take this forward?
Great. You mentioned about your factory in Coimbatore. Tell us about the sustainability initiatives that you've done in and around the factory.
So it's new still. We're hoping that will be a LEEDs Platinum certified factory, a green factory. We're in a water deficient area, so we obviously we're putting up a whole rainwater harvesting thing. We put up plantations for temperature reduction. We put up gardens for with the herbs, etc. Fruit plantations, but these are all new and it's now. So all of this will take, I guess, 10 years by the time it all grows to size. It takes a tree. There's some fast growing trees, there's some slow growing trees, but 5 to 7 years. But obviously, all this wastewater management, all of those things, we put in all of those processes so that it's absolutely clean, and we have these certifications in place very soon. So it's a clean and green factory.
So PETA certification, you have a host of PETA certifications. What does that mean to you as a brand, Vivek?
Well, not hosts. So PETA is one certification, which is on a bunch of products, which basically say we don't test on animals. The products are clean. We're doing no animal testing, and we never have and never will. It's I'm the guinea pig. So it's sort of we basically it's all lab. It's all tested. It's all tested on labs. There's no trials on animals. No animals are harmed in the producing of our products. And that's what it means.
You mentioned all that went into your retail footprint and designing the stores and so on. Tell us about your flagship store, Delhi's Khan Market one, for example.
So it's a small store. It's 300 square feet, 310 square feet. And when we got it, we weren't really sure. First of all, it took me about 6 months to get it because I wanted the store to be in the front, to face the road. So I think was that even if it didn't make any money, it would be like a free ad. So it'd be like a hoarding. People can drive past and see the sign. At least there's a brand recall there. So I kept thinking about that. So that was a very important one. And so I think location is key. When you're looking at a store, I think location, especially in retail, even if it's a good mall, if you have a bad location, don't take it. I think the location is key. And in this Khan Market, we had a location all over the place. I specifically waited that 6 months, gave up a bunch of shops until such time we got a good location. I think the location is critical. The next thing was what's it going to feel like when you walk in. So we wanted to feel Indian, obviously. I wanted to feel slightly pharmaceutical because that's what Ayurveda is. But I didn't want it to feel fuddy-duddy. So there's some sort of, contemporariness, some sort of modernity. We wanted there to be a sense of smell because that's the first thing that you come in. What the people are wearing. I wanted an idol of Dhanvantri in the store. And I couldn't, and every store we have has an idol of Dhanvantri. And it's something which I wanted. It's just something which I thought was important. And I couldn't find one which I liked. In South India, I saw them either made in they were made in granite or stone or very bulky, and they were some strange looking wood ones. So then I found a master craftsman in Swami Malai, which is where a lot of bronze work happens. And there's a classical proportion for making an idol, and he made us 2-3 samples, and then finally we got the right proportion, and it's in the shop. And since then, he's made an idol for every shop. And each one is lost track. So he didn't take the mold and give it to Muradabad. He let this guy continue, and his family is continuing to make them for us. So it's quite amazing. It's really been a exceptional thing. So he's been, and this is what I mean about working with small class people wherever we can. So this guy, we found him around Swami Malai, sent somebody down there, find somebody, found him, and he's still been making them. He's still been making them for us. And so this whole idea of India, South India. Because that's where we come from. And so there were markers to that. So with the spice bowls, urlis, earthen, those the sort of wooden spice boxes. Then the mixers, the vutnas, but basically everything from South India. And that was put around the shop again to give a some sense of history, that or trace something idea of authenticity, that we're coming, that we're from India, we're authentic, it's made in India, and using a lot of wood, a lot of cane, marble on the floor. So it had a very nice sensation, and I think that we've still followed that model. It's 10 years, and we're still more or less, working around that. So it took us a lot of time and a lot of angst to create it, but I think it was worth it. Again, the time you put into it, into the packaging, the same amount of time you should put into your the master look and feel, because that's the primary touch point of anybody with the brand. I think that's really important.
So investments from Lighthouse Advisors as well as the Spanish brand Puig, those must have been welcome developments for Kama. I'd like you to comment on them, Vivek.
So the first one was interesting because at that point in time, we weren't sure, I should say, there were four of us, whether we should even take any money. Because like, first we were so small, and then we were going to take money and do what with it? Get the money, but then what happens with it, And from that, working ourselves around it, it took us 2 years to going around these conversations to actually working with it. But I think that first round of money, helped us grow exponentially. It really helped us put business systems in place, hire people, and the fund, I have to say, was extraordinary. They really, really helped us grow. It helped me grow, helped the company grow, guided us, held our hand, with everything. I think in every part of the business. It was really quite, I think for us, it's been a great journey. And with Puig, which has come in now in 2019, that's our next growth story, that's next part of the journey. It obviously things got slowed down because of the pandemic, but that's where we see, going forward, working with them to take Kama internationally.
With that, we dive into the fun section of this conversation. Let's start with the first question, which really, we'd like to know who's the business leader that you really admire, and what are those qualities in him that really stand out for you and probably you emulate already in your everyday life? That's
interesting. I never really followed business leaders, so I'm not really familiar with them. But I do. Who I thought was extraordinary was Steve Jobs at Apple, and I think the thing that I really admired was the fact that he created products not based on consumer demand, but he made products and then the consumers wanted them. So like, who thought of an iPad? But he made an iPad and suddenly everybody wanted one, And it's just the way, and I started using Macs when I was very young, when they first started coming out. And I've seen them grow and I've seen them work, and the technology that goes into them. And the design, I think that's what really drew me to them, was the extraordinary design, the refinement in detail, even the fonts that were used in the and the navigability, the amount of attention to detail in the navigation, the thought process in every single instrument that you use, which you touch from Apple. I think that for me was extraordinary. I mean, I don't know what his business practices were like, because I'm not really that familiar with them. But I do know that there was an extraordinary, and I know there's lots of ups and downs, but I think what I really admired was this extraordinary gift to detail, this refinement to design, and this, I would say, almost visionary approach to creating products, which even people didn't know they needed.
What kind of music do you listen to? What's on your playlist? And if you have any memories of great music concerts that you went to recently or before the pandemic, of course, I'd like you to share them.
I've been to a music concert for a while. I think the last one I went to was with the Gundecha brothers, and right here at the Habitat Center in Delhi. I think that must have been 4 or 5 years ago. What do I listen? I listen to a bunch of different things. So I listen to, it depends. So I have some like one workout, like sort of exercise music, and then I have music I listen to, which I sort of enjoy. So that sort of adrenaline, I would say, I guess sort of some sort of like trance type, trance techno sort of stuff, which is sort of what I do for exercise. And then what I listen to for myself, I listen to opera, I listen to classical music, I listen to Indian classical music, Hindustani classical music. So that sort of genre. So, sort of extreme.
A book that has made left an impact on you?
Lots of them. But what I'm actually reading right now is the title. But it's a great book. I'm going to get it for you in a second. Hang on, it's here somewhere. It's called Meditation in Action.
Wow.
Chogyam Trungpa. It's a great book. I'm sort of rereading it. I think it's a bit heavy going. rereading it for the third time. But it's a great book, and it's something which I started reading. Actually, I bought it at the airport, I think, about 2 years ago, and I sort of keep going back to it. It's very, very interesting.
A sport you follow, and your favorite player in that sport would be?
Not good with sports.
That's an honest confession. No problem at all.
Your favorite vacation spot and why you love going there?
Don't say you're not good at vacations.
No, I don't know. I love the idea of vacations. I just don't manage to get enough of them. I think that's the. But that's the interesting thing about this pandemic. It sort of felt like you sort of parked in one place for so long, you sort of forgot about what day went into night and into day, and you sort of what do I love going to? Okay, I love going to the mountains. I love going to mountains where I can walk. I love going to the beach, to the sea. I'm not like a major, how do you say it? Like, I'm not fussed about, going to fancy restaurants and I'm not into that. That's not, I think I've been there, done that sort of thing. So I think now what I'm interested in is where I can, where something's really beautiful, where you can relax and be yourself and spend time with yourself. I think that's what interests me now. I love going to Japan. I love
cherry blossom season or anytime?
I've never been to cherry blossom. I've missed that, but I think I've been there like 4 times now, and I love going there. I just love everything about it. I guess again, the design, the culture, the food, the attention to detail, the refinement. I guess I'm drawn to those things. So the refinement in everything, in every little thing. It's literally the tiny little things. You buy one little takeaway, and even that's like wrapped like a gift I would be able to give anybody. So I think I keep going, getting back and being drawn to those things. So that, I guess.
Vivek, we really love how you've taken an ancient science and modernized it without compromising its fundamental values. All the best to Kama Ayurveda and to you for the journey ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You said you're not a pioneer. We think you are, and we love how you've rejigged your operations, transformed it when you required to. We've ridden the pandemic the way you have. You've been on your feet. We'd like to commend you for that, and thanks for being on the show. Thank
you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here, and thank you for some of the questions. They made me not think. So that's good. Thank you so much. It's important. Thanks so much.
With that, it's time to wrap up another episode of season 2, but not before I give you a heads up on something special that's happening on the women empowerment front since it's International Women's Month. Now, this year, to celebrate women from all walks of life, we bring to you a virtual award ceremony on the 25th of March, felicitating She Slays champions. That's hashtag She Slays, chosen by an eminent jury, a roundtable of women breaking through stereotypes and cliches. And this event will be hosted by Radio 1 presenters and the editor of Health Shots.
Yes, healthshots.com is a health and wellness destination for the millennial women. And we're very excited about our She Slays campaign for International Women's Month and also these amazing awards. Do join us.
Thanks for tuning in, guys, and make sure you keep listening to some great radio and podcasts. Build that habit.
And come back next week for another episode.
Yep, minding my business, the CEO story. Shall be back with another captain of the industry who's been a path breaker. Remember, we're on 94.3 Radio 1 on FM radio, on an HD Smartcast in podcast form, over all major streaming platforms. It's a Radio 1 production. So till next week, it's bye from me, Hrishi K.
And me, Ramesh Menon. See you soon.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, then subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss out on more content.